Hello again, and welcome to the Scope podcast. My name is John Scott, CEO and co-founder over at ScopeStack, where we solve all your IT services, scoping, and pricing needs. I am pleased again to have me joined by James Davis from Pax8, director of their academy over there in the Asia region. And James, thanks again for joining us on the podcast, sir.
Thanks for having me back. I didn't outstay my welcome, so that's always a win.
No, I mean, it was basically because we had so many subscribers subscribe to your first podcast that we had you back, the second time, just because it was wildly successful.
Thanks for lying to me. That's
just pretend like that's true. Yeah. Just pretend like that's true. But no, hey, so the topic today that I want to pick your brain on is the idea of digital transformation. That to me was something that was, I work for Dimension Data and Insight and some of these larger VARs. They were really global at the time. And it was, digital transformation was a thing that we always talked about, outcome-based selling. And it was quite a shift from our normal kind of go-to-market and our normal thought process as pre-sales engineers, as salespeople. And I know this is a conversation that, or rather a trend that you're kind of seeing in the MSP community as well, as the idea of like transformational projects. It's and some of the considerations, the differences even around how we typically sell today. And so, maybe if you could just kind of like give us a teaser into that, and we can kind of get into some more of the details. Like, what are you seeing out there around digital transformation?
Well, it's no longer the big enterprise thing, like you just said. Like we've always sort of been around in the enterprise world and nomenclature for at least a decade now, isn't it?
It works great in marketing. That's all I got to say.
It hasn't really been a thing for us in small business and our MSPs. We've traditionally built the back of our projects, and what we do for clients is keep the lights on. And we've always done sort of lift and shift type infrastructure refresh type projects. It's always technical and behind the scenes. It has some impact obviously on the clients because there's a bit of downtime. But if we do a network upgrade as an example and change the firewall and the switches, clients
when you're done.
Don't
right?
really
they sign off and you're done.
Yep.
Or maybe you'll manage it.
And it's not, or maybe you don't do it very well and it causes a lot of issues, but we've all been there.
Yeah.
But we're not changing the workflow of anyone. It's typically just been some positive impacts that things run a bit better. Yeah. Whereas what's starting to seep through into the small and medium-sized businesses is a lot more transformation work, and MSPs really aren't identifying this. And when I bring up this little project example shortly, I always see the light bulb moments going off in people's heads. And before I do that, I sort of want to clarify what digital transformation actually means, because like you said, it's great on a marketing brochure, but what it really is leveraging new technology to increase productivity, change people's workflow, automation, report data, all the exciting
you're driving outcomes
technology can do. That's the best way to sum it up. It's an outcomes-based project. And this is where, when we start to peel back, this is why we struggle as an MSP, because the only outcomes we've ever had to worry about are, is it going to be better than what it was before? And how much downtime are we going to cause for the client from changing their server over or migrate them into the email into 365? There's very little impact. Whereas an example that I'm going to bring up now is SharePoint. What we're seeing from COVID is everyone's been getting off prem and moving stuff to the cloud, their files and folders. It's a lot better. We can collaborate more. But as an MSP, we've often just treated it as a lift and shift project. We'll move your file structure and stuff from our on-prem server up to the cloud.
Instead
And
of saving
now,
your files there, you save them here, right? I mean,
yeah, it's as
that's it.
simple as, isn't it?
Yeah,
Um, but what you're probably seeing in your MSP is those projects get stuck because all of a sudden we're relying on people inside that business to do things. How many of you are listening now and going, oh yeah, we have had a few of those, and we've got one on the boil now. It's like been like 5 or 6 months where the person internally hasn't done anything with updating the file structure, and we're stuck.
right.
That's because this is a transformation project. All of a sudden, we're requiring interaction, and we're changing the workflow of the people in that business, and it
Yeah,
requires a lot different methodology.
yeah, and those are I'm interested too on like upskilling our current team to support this kind of conversation, right? It's I'm again working at other organizations. Like this was we went through multiple trainings, and beat into us. It wasn't just digital transformation, to your point, which is the marketing thing. It was okay. Our clients want to achieve some sort of business outcome, right? And then we're going to associate that to some level of KPI, and like that's what we're going to get measured on, not the fact that we've completed the project, right? And so to your point, it's changed from speeds and feeds, recurring revenue model potentially to to a, like to your point, like we're foundationally changing the way we do business. No one's in the office now. Everyone's working from home. What is the impact there, and what technology do I need to support this new business transformation? And so do you see like is that an easy flip for some engineering organizations, or is it more difficult?
I, I think for most MSPs it's extremely difficult because it sort of, some ways it sort of goes against everything that we normally do.
Yeah,
Firstly, these projects are often more bespoke. They're
sure.
not. There's obviously some repeatable elements. Like if you do SharePoint, you still want to do a lot of the technical things and set the standards as repeatable as possible. But how you go and interact with the clients, what you actually need to do and build is actually bespoke. And what we've sort of, the MSPs that have done well at maturing their project delivery are very good at that infrastructure waterfall project where they plan it out, they set a fixed price, they've got good repeatable methodology, they've implemented automation, and they can deliver it at a profitable amount. But none of that requires much interaction with the client. There's no real discovery process because we've built that sort of repeatable project scoping methodology. We only need to answer X amount of questions and do it. Whereas these sort of projects are more consultative.
Yeah,
And what I'm seeing most MSPs doing is they're doing all the consultative stuff in a half-assed way in the sales process. So not only are we not doing it very well, we're actually giving all that work away for free. Where if you look at a lot of organisations, they're more than happy to spend a really good amount of money on getting a consultant in, and there's a reason for that because there's value in getting someone to come in and actually guide through the process, understand the requirements properly, and even get a no or a go or no go decision. So what we need to start looking at is instead of going a full like fixed fee project for go to woe, to actually start to break down these sort of phases of delivery. So
right.
there's always going to be a pre-sales sort of component around understanding sort of what they're trying to achieve. But we don't really need to understand all the detail. We just need to see, is there an opportunity there that they need our help? And is that help going to be through a consultative process?
Yep.
And when we sell it, we don't need to sell it as a fixed price. We can just go, here's a retainer. First phase is going to be a discovery phase. We're going to come in, you're going to pay me $10,000, John. I'm going to come in, I'm going to understand all your workflows, what you're trying to achieve properly, and design a solution from that. And that could be SharePoint with whatever bells and whistles from there,
Right.
and then go to them and say, it's going to cost you this much to do, and here's the outcomes and the benefits that you're going to get. And you might go to the board and present that, and they say, no, it's not worth our investment. That's okay. They've got a decision. There's a lot of power in no.
Yeah, I mean I think that's
they
where
paid you $10,000 to say no, right?
yeah, well I think that's where some of the additional values from some of these MSPs and VARs can really come in. Like that's where you can differentiate yourself in the market, right? If you can come in there and truly understand, you could speak the business lingo, right? The technology piece is in your head, or it's kind of like in the background. It's the thing that we use to augment, the overall like program or plan or whatever. But it's not the thing, right? It's I think about some of the organizations that we work with and the ones that have that consultant type mindset and they can think through that. And yeah, you're right. Like the phase-based project, we don't know what we don't know because we want to dig in there and like work beside you and understand your business and where you want to go. What's your 3-year plan? What's your 10-year plan? Right. And how do we size and scale the technology again, kind of as a backdrop, like that's the engine piece, right, of this overall program, but it's not the end all be all. It's delivered, to your point, delivering the outcome. So I think there's a huge opportunity to differentiate yourself in the market if you can have that conversation the right way.
100%. And this is the challenge, going back to one of your points there around like the flip in skill sets and things, because like you just said, technology isn't the main focus. It's one of the tool sets to solve a problem and create an outcome. But really it's being able to ask a lot of questions and quantify things and know where to look inside the business and who to talk to and gather up requirements to properly then use your technology skills to go, what would be a best solution to solve these problems? And honestly, most people in MSPs don't have that skills because we've really been built off the back of keep the lights on mentality. We solve point in time problems most of the time. We're not there to ask a lot of questions. We do things behind the scenes.
And those organizations that you see making this change or investing in this change, it's not an all or nothing thing, right? It's not like we're going to go from a managed services organization or to a project-based organization to a consulting organization. There's a mix of all that, right?
Yeah, 100%. And this is what I'd say is a modern TSP, the technology solutions provider, that it is a mix between these three. There's still going to be that managed services component. There's still the infrastructure waterfall type projects, and there's this consultative. And for that, typically probably the business owners are in the best position to actually do this.
Yeah.
And it's actually what they enjoy doing, funnily enough. It's that whole conversations with people, helping them, leveraging technology. But we haven't set our businesses up a lot of the time for us to go out there and charge $300 to $500 an hour to go do this work.
Right.
But if we do, it's very lucrative at that point.
Yeah, I mean, how does,
like you said, there's a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, what are some of the other considerations as you kind of think through making the shift or putting some focus around discovery and consulting type conversations? Like, you mentioned something around like identifying opportunities that might require this. Like how would you know where there's the right type of opportunity to have that kind of conversation?
So you need to already be having conversations with your clients about their business challenges. And this is the time, again, where owners can be a bit creative as well. Like we don't typically want that in our normal project infrastructure stuff. We want it to be nice and repeatable, but these sort of transformation projects can be a bit creative. So we should be looking for new technologies, new ways to do things. And we should be looking at what business challenges our clients actually have, because that's where the opportunities come out. If they've got issues with onboarding employees, as
Yeah.
an example, most businesses do. Well, is there technology there that we can help them structure their onboarding process, leverage technology to do it? Do they have like 10 admin staff doing all this repeatable stuff that could be automated and only have like two? Like things like that are where the opportunities come. So you've actually got to be actively looking for it. Our typical passive, we're only going to get so much passive opportunity if we're not actually
Yeah.
looking for it. Like SharePoint, security is another one. A lot of that people impact that we have when we change security methodology and have to train people. They're the ones that just come out by default in MSP. But if we're not actually talking to our clients and actively looking for it, they'll go elsewhere because all they'll
Right.
see is we're the ones that keep the lights on. They won't talk to us about their business challenges and we won't
Yeah.
get an opportunity. I see that time and time again.
Yeah, I mean, I would think if you have a QBR process in place or something like that, like there's a natural conversation to be had already, right? Annual QBR, meeting with your clients, understanding their business, like you can ask these questions. You don't have to be some Harvard graduate to be able to consult. You just need to be curious. I mean, I think that's an oversimplification of
Yes.
it, but you absolutely need to be curious about their business and have a desire to learn about what makes them tick, right? As a business, and where do they want to go with it? You don't need to add or ask some deep theoretical or whatever philosophical questions in order to be effective at this.
No, not at all. It's again, a lot of it's not really rocket science. It really is just taking the time to be curious in your clients' businesses and
Yeah.
be aware, really, of the impacts to the people element and process element. Where MSPs are far too focused on the technology inside business, but it's actually the least important. Even though we talk a lot about it, it's the backbone of the economy and stuff
Well,
like
it's
that.
easy for us, right?
Sure,
As
but
as engineers, it's easy for us to talk the tech because we're all nerds.
yeah,
It takes like an intentional effort to your point around, you know, asking the question, right? Outside of your comfort zone.
and this is where we've got to change our mindset in our MSPs too. Is actually the people are the most important things. Processes create that structure, and technology should be the way to create scalability and efficiency.
Yeah.
It's not the be all and end all, and we need to have a lot more empathy for our clients and end users because this is where often we miss out on the sort of opportunities to generate more revenue, but also it's to create better client experiences and get a lot larger referral circles.
Yeah.
Because when we treat our projects as the infrastructure lift and shift, we don't worry about the users. It's all technical stuff. Whereas when we're looking at, say, SharePoint, I'll keep using that as my go-to example, we could lift and shift SharePoint. You could get past that issue around creating the files, getting the person internally to create the file structure and change file name. There's technology solutions that you could just run over the all the files and change the names and just do it. We could solve a social problem with technology.
Yeah.
But when we put it in, none of the users are going to know how to use it, and their first thought is we're worse off than what we were before.
Right.
Whereas if we spent some time and actually went and trained them to how to use it and what the benefits are, all of a sudden they're going to feel good and they're going to utilize it. You're creating that sort of trust with the executive board level of we're making a difference in the business. You're going to open up more opportunities to do more and more projects like this in the future. And
Yeah.
a lot of these transformation projects, like you said, it's not a fast thing. Like a lot of the time, even in small businesses, these are years worth of work.
Yeah.
It can be many, many phases of tens of thousands of dollars each phase to get this stuff done.
Yeah. I mean, I'm really interested in this idea of, I think I was like reading an article somewhere or whatever, but it's the it's a strategic decision to actually undersell your clients. Meaning, and the reasoning being, if you as an MSP try to go in there and get the highest recurring revenue possible to manage this environment, let's say it's, $10,000 a month or whatever, because we're covering everything. But what kind of made me think about it is what you just said, but we get, 6 months down the road. Now as a business, I'm not getting $10,000 worth of value out of that contract. Then it puts a bad taste in my mouth. It makes me question, do they understand my business? However, if I was able to go in there and do what you said and hey, we're going to have a discovery process. It's $10,000 or, we could spread it or whatever. I think it shows some intentionality around wanting to grow with that business and understand the business as opposed to just being another feather in the cap around, hey, we got another big client, on our books. That idea, just lately, has been really interesting to me because it helps us orient around how do we want to treat our clients and how do we want to understand our clients and how do we want to help them at the end of the day, right? And it may not be, to our detriment right now, but you have a much longer higher net dollar retention. You have happier customers that will refer you. They, because they're going to go out and say, hey, James really understands my business. He came and he was curious and he put in the effort to understand it to then properly craft and propose the right solution for my business. And that's what makes you successful in the long run, in my opinion. So it's been kind of interesting to think through that.
And on that point is a lot of us, it starts from sort of sales where we're not very good at sales. We're reactively doing it. So when we get an opportunity, our eyes light up and we try and sell as much as possible in one go because we don't know when we're going to have this opportunity again, and we oversell. So I'm very much on the strategically underselling and doing overtime because not just because it benefits the MSP. That's one facet. You make a lot more money by breaking things down into smaller chunks and charging more money for it. But actually, if you look at you take a step back and look at your client base in an MSP. I'll just talk to the average MSP as between $1 million and $3 million. You probably have 5 to 8 clients that make up 80% of your revenue and margin. And then you have a long tail, the average MSP of 3 million probably has 100 clients on their books, spending various amounts. And what we can do, because we're feeling often we're not charging enough for things, like I just mentioned earlier around consulting, we give it all away for free, where it's hundreds of dollars per hour for our wisdom and experience.
Yep.
And we're not charging for that, and often we're not charging enough per seat for our managed services and security offerings. We're always rushing and dealing with trying to deal with a higher volume of clients than actually boiling it down to who are our core client set. Right. And when I've done this sort of exercise with MSPs, that they've got that 100 client on the books, 8 of them are making 80% of the revenue. There's that sort of freedom to go, what am I going to do with the rest of these clients? And often what happens is the owner goes, actually, I can go and charge these clients a lot more. They do need to engage with us properly. And it often boils down to maybe you end up with 50 clients on the books and you're making more money than you ever have. But it's that sort of slow down to speed up again.
Sure.
If we focus on spending more time with a smaller subset of clients, then we can make more money out of those clients, but also give them better outcomes. And it's better for both parties. Where we try and act often as an MSP, especially in the smaller side, we're trying to act as though we're a big MSP. We're trying to get all this scale, but we're never going to get it. So why are we trying to run our business model like that? Right. It's much better to go towards that sort of, I call it the boutique TSP model, where we have our clients, but we're very deeply engaged with them. And it just flips that sort of mentality in how you're able to do things.
Yeah, I mean, so to kind of sum some of this up, right? The idea of digital transformation, it's not just for marketing. However, it's a behavior change for our organizations. So as a TSP, if I want to invest some time, money, whatever it may look like into this, like it is different than how we're currently doing it today, potentially. However, it doesn't have to be a complicated process. I think there needs to be some structure to like what that engagement looks like, but it doesn't need to be complicated. Actually, quite the opposite. The better it is the easier it is to understand, I think the better chance you have to like build out that practice within your business. That's a sidebar. Right. But it really all kind of boils down to being curious about your clients. And you mentioned this on another podcast, but like being empathetic, having empathy for your clients to understand their business, be willing to ask those questions that may not be comfortable for you as an engineer, but are going to be meaningful questions to ask for your clients to drive better outcomes. Did I get all that? I nailed it, right? Perfect.
You did. That was perfect. Couldn't get any better than that, Jon.
Thanks, Jay. You lied to me. No, but all right. So what is one thing? What are one or two things that you could advise someone that's listening to this podcast, or like, hey, I'm interested in this idea. Where do I start?
The two major things I would start with is anytime there's an opportunity in your client base, is always to stop and think and go, what's the impact to the people aspect? Because if there's direct impact to how it's changing their workflow, how they work, there's a potential for people to lose their jobs if it's implemented, then, or even elevate their job roles, then that's a transformation project. And that's where you should kick into gear around, now I need to be curious, and now I need to look at selling this differently and managing the process differently. And a lot of the time, it's as simple as that. The second part to that is, sorry.
Go ahead. You go ahead.
What I'd say from that then is looking at how do you embed training into what you do, training and enablement, because we're very focused on support and lift and shift infrastructure and the technical side. That's being commoditized. There's getting less and less infrastructure. There's support's less and less valuable. What people are actually looking for is how do we actually enable our people to utilize technology, be better at their jobs, be more productive and efficient. So not just in these sort of consultative projects, but how do we tie that into our managed services? How do we supplement our reducing support needs with more enablement activity? How do we create more services that we're doing more training and more enablement with people?
Right.
As an example, one of my clients, they have a software trainer over in the Philippines, who what they do is every new employee onboarding for the clients that they serve, that person will ring them up and take them through an onboarding process. So not just how to access their system like we normally do, it's how to lodge support work, how to go to the self-service portal, how do they use the applications in their business. So what they've done is made their MSP quite sticky with their clients because they help with HR. All of a sudden, the HR person isn't having to scramble around doing all this stuff. It just happens as a part of the engagement. So just being a bit more creative of how do you help the people.
Yeah. I love that stuff. Again, you talk to people all over the world. And so, getting your perspective on what this looks like and really where it's trending and seeing that there's now this, I don't know if it's now necessarily, but like there's more and more need, especially with all the security implications that you mentioned that earlier is security. Like that's a big one that it's not top of mind, should be top of mind for everyone and really in every engagement. And to me that, when you start talking about a very simple infrastructure install, like if you even just ask the question around security, it's going to lead to other conversations that lead into, this transformation conversation. I don't know why I said conversation so many times, but I did. But at the end of the day, it takes change and takes some intentionality around how do you want to engage and support your clients. And so this has been awesome, man. So again, the wisdom is great.
Well, thanks for lying to me again, Jon.
Well, look, I needed a win in the lie count. So, well, hey, so if anyone doesn't know who you are, which they should, everyone should know who James Davis is. But if you don't, they want to reach out to you, have a conversation. What's the best way to get in touch with you and also learn more about what you're doing over at Pax8 now?
Jump on and find me on LinkedIn and add me, and more connections are better. Drop me a line. I share a lot of articles and share the podcasts that I do around as well. Just a lot of different topics that I talk about. Yeah. Otherwise, jump on the Pax8 website and go to the Academy resources. And it's a lot of, once you sign up as a partner with Pax8, don't even have to transact. There's a whole LMS with all this free content around different topics in an MSP as well. I'm really passionate about trying to help the industry get better, and we need to, because our economies and the industries are relying on us more and more, and there's so much opportunity for us, but we're still stuck in a lot of the fundamental stuff that we haven't got right. So if we can solve that and elevate ourselves, it's going to be a happier, better place for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm pretty sure if you listen to this podcast, you'll fix all that stuff for your business. So that I feel confident in. Just 1 or 2 episodes with James on the InScope podcast will fix it all. But James, thanks again, man. Again, I know it's early in the day over there for you, but I appreciate you dedicating some time to this and being willing to help those that are going to listen to the podcast. So if you haven't subscribed to the InScope podcast, go to scopestack.io/podcast, and you could subscribe on all the channels that are out there. Again, there are a bunch of great resources to help you as a TSP, MSP, VAR, really kind of up your services game. So also, if you're interested in learning more about ScopeStack, you can go to scopestack.io. We have a free plan that will just help you create a better scoping process. And not to mention start to integrate with some of your workflows too. So with that, thank you for joining us on the InScope podcast, and we'll see you on the next one.